You're listening to Winnipeg's Classic 107. My name is Simon Rusnak. The Royal Canadian College of Organists Winnipeg Centre welcomes Toronto's Aaron James for a solo recital. The accomplished award-winning player has performed in both Canada and the U.S. and currently serves as music director at the Toronto Oratory of St. Neri and as a sessional lecturer at the U of T. Performing this evening at First Presbyterian Church, Aaron James has first joined me in the Classic 107 studio. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be here.
Great to have you, and great idea to turn your microphone on. So thanks so much for joining me bright and early.
Yeah, great to be here. Good morning.
Now, you arrive in town with a most impressive bio, I have to say. An alumnus of the Eastman School with a double doctorate, a PhD in musicology, and a doctorate of musical arts and organ playing, which is just beyond impressive. Clearly, you're passionate about the organ, passionate about playing, the literature, the history. But I want to start off by asking a pretty simple question. The organ, when did you start playing?
Yeah, well, I was in high school. I mean, I think most people that start playing the organ start as piano players. And so you take piano lessons as a kid. You learn that music. But in high school, I was asked if I would help out and play some organ at my church. And I just fell in love with the power of the instrument, but also the different sounds that you can create, the different stops, the kind of ability to orchestrate on the instrument. Just really cool and really sort of suited to my personality. So
I was going to ask exactly that. I mean, like, I imagine most of the people listening currently are familiar with the piano. I mean, maybe they've taken lessons themselves, or at least they've sort of plunked out the odd tune at the keyboard. Can you paint a picture for us? I mean, your own transition from keyboard, because I know you're a piano player as well. Can you paint this picture of when you sit down at an organ, what is that like versus taking a seat at a keyboard?
Yeah, well, the organ usually has several manual keyboards for the hands. So you're looking at a console with sort of one keyboard and then a second keyboard or even a third. Sometimes on very large instruments, as many as 6 or 7 keyboards that are sort of spread out in front of you. And then also a keyboard for the feet. And so you're playing sometimes on 2 keyboards at once with 2 hands. You're playing with your feet. And so there's a lot of different things going on.
If people have not seen an organist perform in person, it is something else. I have to say, as someone who doesn't play the organ, but someone who completely is just enamored with the playing of the organ, because that in and of itself is just something to behold. Once you see the feet going, the hands going, the mirrors sometimes that, you know, you're kind of looking back at the center towards the congregation. I mean, there is just so much to take in. And as you mentioned, the other thing about the organ is just the sheer number of possibilities. Can you talk more about that for us, Aaron? The colors, the sounds, and just the sheer number of opportunities that are presented to a skilled player?
Yeah, well, a lot of the reason that you have more than one keyboard is that you can have different sounds on different keyboards. So you could have a sound that's more like an oboe or a sound that's more like a string instrument, and you can combine those in different ways. So it's almost like having an orchestra, that you can have transcriptions from other music, or you can have very sort of complicated combinations of sounds with the different keyboards and different stops.
So wonderful opportunities. But one other thing that I'd imagine is, given how individual each instrument is, it would take a lot of getting used to becoming familiar with an instrument. So can I ask you about the instrument that you'll be performing on this evening, the Beckereth organ at First Presbyterian? How have you two been getting on?
Yes, well, this has been most of my time since I've gotten into Winnipeg, is just getting to know this instrument, trying out different combinations of stops on the organ, and then putting out a recorder to hear how it sounds and listening to that, because it sounds a little bit different out in the hall than it does when you're up close to the organ. And so this has been very exciting. I mean, Beckereth, very important organ builder of the mid-20th century, of that period where organ builders were inspired by looking back to Baroque instruments. And so this is sort of modeled after some of the great 17th, 18th century instruments in Europe. And so a great instrument for playing the music of Bach and for some of the pre-Bach composers, and beautiful, very sensitive action, very sensitive wind, lots of beautiful sounds. And so that's what I've been getting to know today.
I think you sort of answered this next question as well, but I was curious, how much does the organ itself factor in to the shape of the program? Do you program for the organ, or do you adapt the program for the organ once you arrive? How does that come together?
Yeah, I mean, usually if you're invited to play somewhere, you sort of have an idea in advance of what the organ is going to be like and how that might affect your repertoire choices, because there's modern music that wouldn't work on a more Baroque style of organ like this, and there's more Baroque music that might not work so well on a modern organ. And so usually when you're invited to play a recital, you're sort of told, like, this is the instrument, choose something for that.
So let's talk about what you've chosen for this RCCO Winnipeg Center recital, made up entirely of 17th and 18th century composers. Some familiar names like Bach and Mozart, and then plenty of less familiar ones, though perhaps much better known amongst organists. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people who are sort of organ composers, and then if you're not an organist, you've never heard of them. But organists would be more familiar with some of these people like Bruns and so on.
Can you tell us more about the program that you've put together?
Yeah, well, I'm trying to feature the different sounds on the organ and some different textures. So it's very focused on trying to get as much as I can out of the instrument. And like you said, trying to have some better known repertoire combined with things that you don't hear so often. And so it's possible on this organ, because it's so well designed for Baroque music, to offer music by people like Weckmann and Böhm, who are kind of slightly earlier Baroque composers who wouldn't work so well on another kind of instrument, but that on this organ have very beautiful colors and very beautiful combinations of stops.
Is that an exciting prospect for you? I mean, I know you perform a wide array of literature in terms of the organ repertoire. This really seems like it is at the core of the organ rep, though. Is that an exciting place to be living and to be performing in?
Yeah, no, it's very exciting. I mean, it's some of these pieces in particular are pieces that I studied with my teacher in grad school, who was a specialist in the music of Matthias Weckmann. And so that gives me a lot of kind of pleasure to come back to that and to remember the lessons that we had on this music. And this is music that you can't play everywhere. And so you sort of come back to this and get that warm, fuzzy feeling.
And I mean, all the more reason for audiences who, maybe didn't go through grad school playing music of Weckmann, but all the more reason to experience the organ live and in person, because it really is one of those instruments. I mean, when we put organ music to air, of course, it is very impressive playing, but there's something about not only the instrument, but also the acoustic in which the instrument is set, being in the space and feeling it truly inside yourself, isn't there?
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's almost like, when you play a violin, the whole wooden part of the violin is resonating.
Right.
And with the organ, that's the whole room. That the entire church is sort of designed to resonate with the organ playing. And the builder, when they install the pipe organ in the space, will sort of voice the pipes so that they match the room that you're in. So there's really a lot that is gained when you go and hear it in the space, and the kind of physical rumble that you get from the instrument.
Very, very well said. The recital takes place 7:30 p.m. at First Presbyterian. That's just off Portage Avenue, across from Vimy Ridge Park, at the corner of Picardy Place and Kenora. Entry is by donation. So if you're looking for something to do tonight, 7:30 p.m., again, First Presbyterian Church. Aaron James, thank you so much for joining me here in the studio. We're going to close things out with a little bit of organ playing. This is not your playing, but a performance of Bohm's Vater Unser im Himmelreich. Can you tell us a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, well, this is music from one of J.S. Bach's teachers. And so Bach was a teenager. He was in a place called Lüneburg at a boys' school. And the teacher that he would have worked with at this time was Georg Böhm. And so he learned a lot from Böhm's music. And so this is music that kind of gives you an idea of where the young Bach would have come from. And this setting in particular is very beautifully expressive, lots of ornamentation. So you hear this melody in the treble register, which is really kind of ornate and beautifully ornamented. Just this very beautifully expressive piece.
And here it is on the program tonight, 7:30 p.m. Aaron, thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you.